Well, good morning, social butterflies. We're all out and about. Hopefully we'll have a full house today. Welcome. Good morning, everyone. Good morning to those of us watching at home. Good morning. Hi, Marion. Hi, Shell. Hi, everybody. So welcome, friends. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Desert. My name is Bob Rancourt. I'm going to be your worship associate today. We've got a great program lined up for you today. We're pleased to have the return of Ian Challis to our pulpit, a devoted student and meditation teacher from the Insight community of the desert, who will deliver an insightful message about how to try to develop mindfulness and wisdom in overcoming the sometimes crippling emotion of shame. As we begin, let's acknowledge that we are on the historic homelands of the various bands of Cahuilla people, and we honor the unique relationship that we hope emerges between our community and the indigenous peoples and their territories. Let this acknowledgement serve as a reminder to recognize, honor, reconcile, and partner with the Cahuilla people, whose lands and water we benefit from today. In this congregation, we welcome people of all sexual orientations and gender identities, of all ages and sizes, of all economic statuses and professions, of all physical or mental abilities, people of all races, all ancestries, all cultures. We welcome you wherever you come from, whoever you love, whatever your immigration status, or whatever your level or type of civic engagement. We welcome all those who will learn and grow with us as we commit together to embrace the rich and beautiful diversity of the world and to build a community centered in justice, compassion, and love. You are welcome here. We're glad you're with us this morning. Now, this is the part where we greet newcomers. Do we have a microphone? We do. Bill's back there with a microphone. Good. We'd like to take this moment now to greet newcomers and visitors. If you're here for the first time and are comfortable, you're invited to stand or raise your hand, and an usher named Bill will come to you with a microphone. Bill's a real nice guy, so don't worry about that. Right now, just please share your name and where you're from, and after the service, we invite you to stick around for coffee on the patio afterward. Please raise your hand. Anybody care to tell us? We got hands here. Okay. Is that working?
I'll speak loud. I'd like to introduce Pam Mayer's family, who's here with us today. This is her daughter, Jennifer, her daughter, Cookie, and her ex-wife, Fran, who have become my family.
I had the pleasure of meeting Pam's family and Pam in person when your choir, members of your choir went out and Good morning. There we go. Now we got a mic. So it's really a pleasure to have them here with us today. We're glad you're here. Pam meant a lot to the congregation. So, any other visitors? I know we got visitors in the front row here, or the middle part of the front here.
Hi, my name is Jackie, and this is my son David. I'm visiting him. He lives in Palm Springs, and I'm visiting from Chicago.
All right, Chicago in the house, everybody. All right, and Palm Springs, welcome. That's Joel Baker, our world-renowned accompanist. Thank you, Joel. Do we have any other takers? We do. We got a gentleman over here on the right side of the house.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Eddie, and how I found out about this place was I came in last week on Monday for meditation.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
And I like what the church stands for a lot. And here I am. Try it out.
Welcome, Eddie. Yeah, for those who don't know, there's a Monday meditation, and I think they've added Tai Chi now. If you're interested in those things, it's on Mondays here at the church. So welcome, Eddie. Anybody else care to join us? Say hi? Okay. Well, welcome, everybody. We really are glad that you're with us here today, and we really are truly a welcoming congregation. So welcome, everybody. Listen, if they take me, then you know they're welcoming, okay? All right, so a few announcements here this morning, just some bookkeeping. Members are invited to prepare to decide on the next settled minister of the church on Sunday, June 4 after service, in person or online via Zoom. The only item of business can and will be whether to approve a resolution to call Reverend Ian W. Riddell as the settled minister, for which 90% of attending members must vote affirmatively for passage. And also, folks, keep in mind we need 50% of members, so that's about 65-ish people, to attend to establish quorum, whether you do it by absentee. You should have gotten an email if you don't have an absentee and you might need one. There's an email you can print out your absentee ballot and deliver it by mail or in person by the 29th of May is the date we have to get it received by, okay? Let's see, I just said that. To learn more, see the articles appearing in our monthly and weekly newsletters. There's even a link there to Reverend Riddell's biography, which he invites you to review as you consider your decision. I read it. It's really great. It helps you to get to know Reverend a little bit better. Let's all walk the talk of our fifth principle and engage in a truly shared ministry and the democratic process. That's our fifth principle. Plus, that day, June 4th, afterward, we're going to have a board-hosted cake and ice cream social. So there's a good reason, if alone, to be here that day, right? Is to get some cake and ice cream, for me anyway. So we hope to see you there. Now, on the newsletter, if that's new to you, it shouldn't be. If you're not getting our email, please get on our email list to learn more about us and our programming. The listserv to get on that is admin, A-D-M-I-N, at uucod.org. Admin, A-D-M-I-N, at uucod.org. Okay, good morning. Now, let's go from scattered to gathered and ring our Tibetan bowl today thrice to begin our service and then listen to our music for centering.
Oh, good morning. Can people hear me okay? Is the volume there? Okay, I'm going to try and speak loudly. I tend to be a little soft-spoken, so if anyone needs it louder, just give me a thumbs up. Okay, so thank you so much, Bob, for introducing me, and Reverend Ian for inviting me in the worship committee, and so many familiar and beautiful faces and friends in this congregation. It's been more than a year, and it feels so good to be back here. And I have so many memories around this room and this space. Being here in the pulpit with you a number of times over the years, loving the hymns and the joy and the social activism of this congregation, of this church, is something that just fills my heart with a lot of joy and warmth. And for many years, I used to ground the Monday meditation group that you just attended, Eddie, in this space. And I did that for years. And so I have this very intimate relationship with this room. I sat here on many, many afternoons in silence and community with others who wanted to meditate. And, you know, you could just feel something in this room, all of the prayers and the love and the community that these walls have held and continue to hold. And also just the incredible beauty of this land to do walking meditation, to get outside and experience the beauty of this place. And so, the other thing I wanted to say too is just, I always acknowledge it every time I'm here, is that our community in Palm Springs, Insight Community of the Desert, which is a Buddhist organization, really owes so much of its present capacity, its history to this space and to this congregation, because you supported us very early on in our process 11 years ago. And I don't think we would be here without the support of this church, and also the cross-pollination of members and even the programs that we've done together. Like, we did an anti-racist 7-month program a few years ago, just before the pandemic. And so there's some really beautiful connections and history. And it feels to me, like the wisdom traditions in the world over do exactly the same work to a large extent, reminding us of what we already know deep within, reminding us of our own inherent goodness, our worthiness, our beauty, and that we are not alone. And of course, there's things that seek to undermine that too, like my topic for today, shame. So we'll talk more about it, but there's this documentary series on Netflix, and it's about this queer Argentinian fashion designer, and his name is Santiago Artemis. And it's called No Time for Shame. And it's really just full of joy and creativity, and literally there is no time for shame in this guy. He's just so busy and so alive and so creative. But this morning, I actually do want to create a little bit of time for shame, to bring it out of the shadows a bit, to examine this incredibly powerful emotion and some ways of holding it. So that's what we'll look at a little later on. And thank you so much for having me. I'm really glad to be here. And thanks. And Reverend Ian's going to lead us in a hymn.
Thank you, Ian. It's really wonderful to have you here, and it's fun to send an email to another Ian. So we're going to sing Be Ye Lamps Unto Yourself, which I don't think we've done here much before. It's number 184 in the hardcover hymnal if you want to grab it. We'll stay seated. The words are on the screen. Joel and I are going to sing it through once for you, and then I'm going to teach you each of the bits, and then we're going to sing it through together. It's very straightforward. Think chant, okay?
All right, everybody, why don't we do our chalice lighting and our biopot candle lighting. Please recite the words which will come up on the screen. May love be the spirit of this church. May the quest for truth be its sacrament and service be its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, and to help one another in fellowship. This is our aspiration. I'm going to ask my husband Reuben to come up and light the biopot candle for us. And let's recite the biopot candle lighting. We light these candles in solidarity with Black, Indigenous, and other people of color as we journey toward spiritual wholeness. May we, as a beloved community, work to dismantle racism and all forms of oppression. May we live out our principles so that justice, dignity, and equity for all prevail. Reuben says we have a trick candle here. No. We might have to live with one shy candle on the biopot candle this morning, but I think we'll live. Thank you, Reuben. Today is one of those Share the Plate Sundays. 10-ish times a year, once a month, we share our plate with a worthy organization, a charitable organization, nominated by members of the congregation. So our Social Justice Committee, through Denise Jansen-Eager and others, gets that together. Denise, hi, if you're watching. Today's Share the Plate, I actually happen to nominate. It's called the Riverside County Bar Foundation, and I am so pleased to introduce you to someone from my workaday life who is a force of nature. That's right. Charlene Nelson has been the executive director of the Riverside County Bar Association for decades, and I've probably known her about 15-ish years or so. Charlene exudes compassion and empathy for those in need of the law's protection and those attracted to the law as a possible career. She is a tireless advocate for the legal profession and social justice. Charlene has a unique talent for the unenviable task of making the law and lawyers look good. Yes, she's a big fan of us. Today, Charlene is going to tell us about the Bar Association's charitable arm, which is the Riverside County Bar Foundation, the mission of which is to help families and youth in need and foster education and appreciation of the legal system. Ladies and gentlemen, please give generously to this worthy charity today, and let's give a warm welcome to Charlene Nelson.
Good morning, everybody. What a beautiful spirit there is here. I love being here. Thank you so much. And I would first like to thank my dear friend Bob for the opportunity to be here with you this morning in your beautiful setting. Bob and I have worked together, as he said, for many years through the Riverside County Bar Association, and he always disputes this, but he's a wonderfully kind and compassionate person that I have so long admired. And I'm so grateful for his friendship and for his example. And he's wonderful in the legal profession, in his profession daily. He's very well thought of and loved. And he's a very inspirational speaker. I have heard him speak at mock trial for the kids down in Riverside, and it's very inspirational. So I'm looking forward to his remarks this morning. So as he mentioned, I'm the director at the Bar Association. We're one of the oldest bar associations in the state. We were founded in 1894. And through the years, the Bar Association has been involved in many different charitable projects throughout the county. And in 2015, we established the Riverside County Bar Foundation, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization to better manage our charities that we've created. So Bob asked me to tell you about a few of them. I'll try to be quick. The first one is the ELVS program. We call it the ELVS program. We established it in 2002. Brian Piercy was president that year and was the person that put this into action, and we've been going strong ever since. The program provides holiday gifts meals and gas cards for needy families throughout Riverside County. There are various ways to be involved in the program. We name them shopping elves, wrapping elves, delivery elves, and money elves. And one night in December, we all get together and shop for the families, people that come to the Walmart store that we choose, and are given information about different families that they can shop for. Then on another night, we get together, and the wrapping elves get together and wrap everything, get it prepared for delivery elves to deliver to the needy families, and to help us identify the families in need in our area, including out here in the desert. We work with agencies such as Safe Family Justice Center in Riverside, Indio, Murrieta, Temecula, the Victim Services of Riverside County's DA's office, the Riverside Probation Department for the county, and the Lighthouse Social Services. Those are just a few of the ones. Those are the ones we worked with last year. And the funds to support the program come from direct donations and money raised through Bar Association events throughout the year. And those who donate the funds are known as the money elves. So last December, we were able to provide for 91 families, which consisted of 260 children and 125 adults. And in this tough economy, we saw a 30% increase last year over what we did the year before. So through the years, since its inception, we figure that we've been able to provide really for thousands of people in the county. And we have families that have made the ELDS program part of their family traditions. They bring their whole family to do these different things. We have high school kids that come out in groups and help us. So it's really a community event, and then all of the people that are members of the bar are so generous. And so we think we've been able to help people pretty well. For over 21 years. We've helped quite a few people in this project. Another program we have is called Project Graduate, and this is a program Bob's been very involved in the past. It was created in 2011 by the Riverside County Bar as a way for attorneys and professionals in the courts to offer academic mentorship and support at-risk youth to help them graduate from high school and plan for their successful future. Advocates say that youth in foster care are at a higher risk of homelessness, substance abuse, incarceration, human trafficking, unemployment, and poverty. Statewide, only about half of all foster students graduate from high school, which is less often than any other student group. One of our local judges, Judge Mark Singerton, he's been involved with the program. He was quoted as saying, "This is an immediate need that requires our attention. You are preventing a struggling youth from dropping out of high school, winding up on the streets, in jail, or worse." Judge Singerton has mentioned who has mentored two youth who graduated from high school. He said that mentoring at-risk teens on the cusp of adulthood can be challenging, but seeing a young person change the direction of their life is worth the investment of time, heart, and energy. Whatever it takes to show these kids you care is what you must do. Judge Singerton said Project Graduate makes a positive difference in the young lives, providing youth with opportunities to be engaged in their own education and to focus on their future. The most important part that they see for themselves that they can do it. So we offer the program throughout Riverside County. As I mentioned, Bob has been an educational mentor. He had a student, I know we've had more than one, but I know he had one from out here in Mount San Jacinto High School in Cathedral City. And I believe you still stay in contact with this person, right? Had made a big difference in his life. That's just one story. We do a reading day. We began this in 2005. We coordinate annually with the National Reading Day for the schools, and we choose an elementary school somewhere in Riverside County. We have volunteer lawyers, judges, other legal professionals. They go out to the school and they read to every class in the school. They talk to the students about the law and legal profession and answer questions. Then we donate books to the school, and we give a monetary donation to the school library. Excuse me. I'm recovering from being sick for a little bit, so I'm sorry. We also have a program called Adopt a High School, which is actually inspired from this area. Justice Douglas Miller, who is a longtime desert practitioner, and before he took the bench, He asked us if we would be interested in doing a program like they were doing out here in the desert area, where we support 12th graders and teach them more about the legal profession with the support of the RCBA board and the barristers, which is the young lawyers of the association. We have a planning committee that created a 3-part program that includes legal careers, a mock preliminary hearing argued by the district attorney and the criminal defense attorney, and a Teach the Class series where guest attorneys and lecturers will prepare students for the AP government exam. We haven't had a Adopt a High School session recently, but I understand there are plans underway to start that up again. We offer the Doug Weathers Scholarship, which is named after a respected local judge who passed away at the age of 61 from early onset Alzheimer's not very long ago. The scholarship is given to 4 outstanding students who participate in the Riverside County mock trial competition, and many desert schools participate in this competition every year. This year we had Palo Verde from Blythe, Palm Desert High School, La Quinta, and Indio High Schools all competed. We also do the Good Citizenship Awards, which is my personal favorite, in association with National Law Day. Each year we send out letters to all the principals in the county asking them to nominate a student, a junior, who they believe exhibits exemplary good citizenship. The award recipients are invited to a beautiful ceremony held at the Riverside Historic Courthouse in Riverside. And judges speak to the students. Many legislators or representatives attend. The students receive a monetary award from our foundation and the Lawyer Referral Service, as well as certificates from the Bar Association, the Superior Court, and various other federal and state agencies. It's a wonderful recognition given to students who may not necessarily be recognized for their outstanding contributions. I've heard from school administrators and parents over the years how receiving this award has helped their student plan for college. They put them in their college portfolios and plans, and it helps them with job interviews. We just had our 40th ceremony, and the photos are up here. It's just a really wonderful, simple ceremony, but it's a real feel-good event for these kids. It really makes them feel good. One thing that we did that was just a one-time project in 2021, the foundation took on this project. We raised money to support the Civil Rights Institute for Inland Southern California. We raised quite a bit of money for them, the local charity that focuses on civil rights history in the Riverside County area. And we felt it was an important thing to support. And the Civil Rights Institute, they provide programming, children's programming, and focus on civil rights in our region. They have programs and exhibits and performances that support civil rights activities. They house an archive and library of regional civil rights materials. They conduct oral history projects and support the production of civil rights audio and video productions through their media center. And they recognize this region, the civil rights leaders, and the impact that they've had in this area. So we were pretty proud of that. And all of the people who work to make these programs happen are all volunteers. I assist the volunteers, and I'm the only paid person working in the foundation, and my salary is not paid through the foundation at all. So with the exception of some fees paid for a CPA to do bookkeeping and tax stuff, any other donation that we receive goes directly to these charities, 100%. So our association is filled with wonderful lawyers and judges and other legal professionals who generously give their time and their talents and funds to make the program successful. It's a real privilege to be involved with all of these and with people like Bob. So if I can answer any questions about anything, please feel free to come up and talk to me afterwards. So,
Well, thank you, Charlene Nelson. Palo Verde High School, the Amy recipient, Palo Verde High School is in Blythe, an oft neglected and forgotten part of the desert. It's not Coachella Valley per se, but the Bar Foundation stretches county-wide, and it takes a while. It does a lot of work, so it takes a while to summarize it and talk about it. Now, Now's the time to put our money where our mouth is, so to speak. As you use, generosity is one of our spiritual values, and we do not lack for it here at this church, that's for sure. And we give in so many ways. We give in talent, we give in time and treasure, whether in combination, standing alone, or not at all, as we value everyone regardless. That's the first principle. We would not have this special place in our sacred grounds without your contributions, so be generous if you can. Today we're sharing our monetary contributions with the nonprofit organization Riverside County Bar Foundation. This charity does a great job helping families and youth in need across the county, including the desert, and promoting the legal profession locally. Please consider increasing your donation today if at all possible. At this time, I'm going to ask the ushers to come forward and pass the collections plate for those who are able to give in treasure today. For those joining us virtually, we haven't forgotten about you. Hi there, out there in the virtual world. You too can donate in this way through our electronic offering basket. That's by clicking on the link in our weekly Constant Contact order of worship that you should have received on Friday, or you should get another digital offering basket link today in the email message that you get today. That's if you're on our listserv. Don't forget admin@uucod.org. During this time, Joel will play the iconic Let It Be. So I want to thank everybody very much for your generosity today, and thank you too. Whether if you can't give in treasure, you can give in time and talent, and that's very much appreciated. It really is. So thank you for that. As Charlene mentioned, she's going to stick around for coffee hour. So if you'd like to meet her and talk to her about the foundation, please do so. And now it's time for us to acknowledge our joys and sorrows. UUCOD is a welcoming community where we find connection. It's a spiritual community where we find meaning. It's a sharing community where our joys are amplified, and a caring community where our sorrows are lessened. We take this moment to reflect on our joys and sorrows and to acknowledge the mutual support we have in one another. Today is what, the 21st of May? From Cheryl. We are joyously celebrating Pam Mayer's birthday today. It's Pam Mayer's birthday today. With cupcakes during coffee hour. All right. Pam's family would also like to offer a piece of jewelry from Pam's collection as a gift to her friends here at UUCOD. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's very generous. From Cheryl, a candle of concern for friend Diane, recently diagnosed with cancer of the adrenal gland. From Mac, a candle for Greg Solt. His birthday is today, another birthday. He left the physical world a year and a half ago. Only because of Greg was Mac able to have his trip to Europe. It hurts immensely for Mac to be alone without Greg still. And then an anonymous sorrow, our sympathy to Berta Hannah's family. She passed away Friday. Her daughter Susan wished to express thanks to the UU folks for their kindness to her. As we go forward, may we remember those we have spoken, those they have named, and those we hold in silence in our hearts. All right, so those are our joys and sorrows for today. I'm going to give a personal reflection now today. I was inspired by Julia Alberg Burbank, one of our members on the worship committee, who's coming in to be your first vice president. And she wrote something a few weeks ago that I observed and really touched me, and so I wanted to share something myself. And Ian's service today really inspired me, the topic. So this is the last service that I'm going to be serving as your worship associate. I'm rotating off the worship committee to take on more responsibilities for the church. So rather than just pull something from our sources, which is what I've tended to do, I thought it better to dig a little deeper for the reading portion of the service here today. In my home office, I have the text that I'm about to quote framed in a decorative picture frame to serve as inspiration to try not to be afraid to act or to do something, like, say, agree to serve as the president of a church. I've been in leadership positions, and while some find the so-called, and I say so-called, power and prestige attractive, I've learned that you can have a target on your back, and with it, criticism that isn't always constructive, and attention that isn't always admiring. And certainly I have failed and made mistakes when I've been a leader, and no doubt I will do so again as your leader. On April 23rd, 1910, another leader, President Theodore Roosevelt, gave a speech he entitled Citizenship in a Republic at the Sorbonne in the Grand Amphitheater at the University of Paris. The following excerpt of the speech, popularly known as the Man in the Arena, still resonates today. Quote, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and blood and sweat, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat." End quote. I first became familiar with this quote when I began reading the work of Brené Brown, a prominent shame research professor at the University of Houston. I've said before that my church before UUCOD was Oprah Winfrey's Super Soul Sunday television show, and that's who introduced me to Dr. Brown's work. So there's still good in TV to be had. In researching this speech, I learned that President Nixon quoted this passage in both his victory speech in 1968 and his resignation speech in 1974, as did President Obama in his 2016 endorsement speech of Hillary Clinton. These are famous people in comparison to whom I'm tempted to feel small and insignificant as I recite this passage again today. But this Republican president, and normally I never agree with Republicans, teaches me not to live and dwell in the comments of the critic, including the self-critic in my head, but to serve a worthy cause and to actually get in the arena, and with this action, know great enthusiasms and devotions, and have a chance for the triumph of high achievement, right? You see, I've lived a life marred by dust and sweat and blood, and I've come up short again and again. I grew up in a chaotic home of very modest means, in which chemical dependency, mental illness, and domestic abuse preponderated. But my parents also gave me an intellect and a strong work ethic. I moved far away, and I put myself through college and law school while overeating my negative emotions to nearly 300 pounds and trying to be straight, driven by shame about my upbringing and sexual orientation. I have worked and continue to work on some of those inner demons passed on to me by my family of origin, all of whom are deceased due to theirs. And so I know both victory and defeat. What I have learned the hard way is that nothing good in life comes without overcoming physical and emotional adversity and hard work on both the inside and the outside. And shame is one of those inner demons that entices me with false illusions of an easier and prettier way, when in reality I go backward, pretend and self-destruct engage in self-destructive behaviors if I take its bait. Only in connection and vulnerability with others about who I really am do I make progress and make a meaningful life. This here, what I'm doing right now. And it really helps to be kind with myself and others, which, based on my hardscrabble life, is something I really have to try hard at doing. I love our first principle, and I believe it's first for a reason. All of us are inherently worthy. We need not prove it. We just really need to feel, believe, and act on it. So may we be compassionate with ourselves today and others. May we relegate shame, not people, to the closet. And may we seize the courage to get in the arena and act and relish those victories with humility and accept the inevitable defeats with dignity, at least while daring greatly.
Thank you, Bob. So, the beautiful, beautiful words and heartfelt meaning. So I'd like to lead us in a moment of prayer and meditation. And I think I was going to do a little bit of a heart opener to begin, but I think, Bob, you did that for us so beautifully. So just sensing into your emotional being, your feeling body, your physical body, your present moment experience, however that's showing up for you right now, right here. And perhaps feeling that sense of worthiness, that sense of okayness that Bob invited us into. And let's just sit in silence for a minute or two. Just resting with the breath, resting with the feelings and emotions and thoughts that are here without trying to chase anything away or make it be different. May we accept ourselves just as we are in this moment, worthy of love, worthy of well-being, worthy of connection, worthy of community. May we accept ourselves just as we are. And so now let's offer our hymn for meditation together. Okay, slides up. Thank you, Ingrid. So here we are. So I'm going to talk a little fast today because I have a lot of words and I find this to be a really interesting topic. So gone is the meditative slow speak, and here comes a lot of words. And I'll try and put some pauses in there too. So in October, I was on the teaching team of a retreat center up in Joshua Tree called Damadena. And this is an annual queer retreat that's been going on there for many, many years. And I was part of this teaching team, which I've been on for the last 6 years. And as we were coming up with a description for the retreat, to put in our outreach materials, the phrase, how can we hold our grief, our shame, and our joys in these challenging times? That's what was offered by one of the people on the team. And I noticed the immediate aversion I had to the word shame. I was like, why do we want to say anything about shame? Who wants to talk about that? Who's going to come to this retreat? And so I realized, wow, that's interesting. Actually, they pointed it out to me, like, you should look at that. And that's actually the genesis of this talk. I was like, okay, yeah, maybe I need to look at that. Maybe I need to, ask myself, why is this such a live topic for me? And I came to realize that it's actually, avoiding shame is a guiding principle in my life. One of the ways I organize what I do and what I don't do. And so, why is this so uncomfortable for me? What is my relationship to shame? And how might I practice with it? And can I make a little time for shame? Oh, shame. We've said it a lot already. What comes up for you just in hearing that word? Is there a physical reaction at all? Is there aversion coming up like there was for me? Let's put on the next slide. There it is. Big red shame. Red with shame. Hot with shame. Dying of shame. Flooded with shame. Pretty powerful, intense, and evocative word. And for me, one of the more intense emotions that I experience. How do we hold these really powerful feelings that are a natural part of the human experience? How do we make space for what's difficult? So the Buddha, in whose lineage I study and practice, said, I teach suffering and I teach the end of suffering. That's what he was really interested in, liberation from suffering, how it arises, how it passes away. And shame, regret, hatred, grief, loss, these are places where a lot of human suffering is located. These are the places that it can be so difficult to inhabit, to relate to, sometimes even to just acknowledge or hear, because usually I want to be anywhere else but with them, with these difficult feelings and emotions. And that's, of course, not possible because these emotions are a natural part of the human experience. So while we're going to experience these emotions all of our life, we may learn how to be less afraid of them. We may learn how to suffer less in their presence. And we may begin to know them as they are with wisdom and hold our experience with more patience and compassion. So let's put on the next slide. There's the snake. So it's kind of like living in the desert where there are diamondback rattlers and scorpions and tarantulas. And as long as I live here, I know that if I venture out, as David and I did this last week and came upon one of these beauties, I'm going to see them from time to time. They go with the land. It's their land, after all. And I could shut down in fear of them. I could stay at home and never go outside. I could deny and avoid their natural presence. Or I could choose to understand them better, know their habits, their locations, increase my wisdom, my understanding and respect of them, so that when I encounter one, I can behave in a way that's appropriate and less likely to cause any harm. And that's much more skillful than if I rely only on my autonomic response when I see a snake. So the experience of shame has that charge for me. It has a pre-verbal component for sure. Very physical, that rush of shame, being flooded, wanting to just fall through the floor. And it feels not unlike those first moments of coming upon a snake or a tarantula or something on the trail. Physical, visceral, And it takes some time for me to even recognize what's happening here when shame arises. Oh, this is shame. Because usually my response is to just run from the discomfort and the situation, whatever it is that's triggered it, as quickly as I can. So shame is a raw emotion, and research shows what we know, that in a moment of shame, logical thinking goes offline, and there's a physiological urge for self-protection. So a leading researcher on shame, Gerald Fishkin, writes, shame isn't associated with cognition at all. At the precise moment shame is triggered, we are emotionally hijacked, and there is no prefrontal activity. We automatically want to be anonymous and invisible. Emotionally hijacked. That really rings true for me when I think of the experience of shame, the dukkha, or the suffering of shame. And shame is tricky because that wish to get away, to become anonymous, invisible, that accompanies it, doesn't invite us to look very deeply, to examine. I just want to put as much distance as I can between me and that moment as possible. I don't want to look at it. I want to run away from it. And as soon as there's some distance, I want to pretend that I never felt it. And I've noticed, I will do almost anything not to feel it. So shame comes in a lot of different flavors, as we all know from our own life experience. But in the basic way that the Buddha identified suffering and the causes of suffering, which he called the 3 root poisons of greed, aversion, and delusion, it's very much aversion, self-aversion, a sense of being unworthy, of being found deficient and not worthwhile, unlovable, not belonging. And most of us don't need the disapproval to come from the outside, from others. We judge ourselves. We imagine what others must be thinking or seeing, especially those of us who inhabit marginalized communities. We experience, and unless we are always alert and ready, we experience dominant culture's judgment and all the ghosts of judgment past stretching back into our early life, parents, teachers, bullies, peers. And underneath this sense of unworthiness is that sense that we are broken, that we are somehow not right, that we are not deserving of love and connection. Let's put on the next slide. Thanks, Ingrid. Not my cat, it's a stock picture. But shame is a hindrance not only to happiness, but it is also a hindrance to our practice, our spiritual practice. When I started meditating on a regular basis about 18 years ago, I had a cushion much like that in our home, and I'd sit on it, and I'd sit there for maybe 5 minutes before some thought of shame would come up in my awareness, and it would literally make me jump off the cushion and run out of the room. I mean, literally. It happened again and again and again. I had no time for shame. I don't want to be with this at all in any way. Although I did keep meditating, so I guess. So this is really one of the ways that the hindrance of aversion shows up in our spiritual practice, that hijacking sense of shame that will push us away from wholeness, or from health, from self-acceptance. I'm not okay, I'm not capable, I'm intrinsically flawed, or I'm an imposter and I will be found out. And you can't imagine how common that feeling is for people who offer Dharma talks and sermons and messages in front of rooms like this. That lurking fear that all of my negative self-assessments are actually true and that you all see it so clearly. It's an incredibly vulnerable place to be. For me, I'll speak for myself. It's definitely an edge. And that fear of shame and humiliation is an incredible motivator. It works, I'll go to incredible lengths to avoid feeling shame. It works, but at what cost? Is this how I want to live? Is this how any of us want to live? By making choices and acting motivated by the fear of judgment, motivated by the fear of feeling that pain of shame. That kind of fear feels like the exact opposite of where creativity and wholeness lives for me. So, what is this energy? It's powerful and slippery, as I mentioned, because it likes to hide. And it's so unpleasant that when an activated shame state has passed, we really don't want to go back there and look at it. But when we look and try to name it, it may be easier to get a grasp of. Of course, it's nothing solid because no emotion ever is, but we may be able to understand it and relate to it in new ways the more we talk about it and see it. So let's put the next slide up. Now we have dogs. And the research says that it's a relatively late and uniquely human emotion. And when I heard that, I was like, no, I know dogs feel shame. I know they do. And then I looked into that, of course, and apparently animal behaviorists don't believe that dogs actually feel shame. They believe that dogs have learned to mimic shame, that they take a posture and act in ways that make us think that they're experiencing shame. And because it's so uncomfortable for us, we feel compassion for them. I don't know if that's true or not, but but shame is mostly about the fear of being disconnected from others because of behaviors that fall outside of group norms. As social animals, being cut out or rejected by the group is an incredibly vulnerable and dangerous place to be. So it's a sort of self-awareness of how we are fitting in, how we are seen. And the pain of shame is a negative motivator to keep us from doing something that might cause us to be cast out or targeted. And this is what I find the most interesting about this, is the compelling thing is that research shows that it isn't related to our own personal sense of right and wrong, to our conscience, to what we really believe, but that we feel shame about transgressing group norms, whether we share those norms or not, whether we really believe them or not. So this makes so much sense to me as a queer person or a member of a marginalized group, that internalized shame that we carry, that we have because we've absorbed these norms, and yet in our hearts we know there's nothing wrong with who we are. Nothing wrong with who I am, and yet there's that shame. We're conditioned to feel shame depending on our culture and our caregivers. And then we internalize that voice so that we are inflicting the pain on ourselves when there's no one watching. And we all know those voices. So I want to talk a little bit about how we practice with this, but I also want to spend just another minute or two with naming shame. Because for something that's so common to the human experience, we just don't talk about it that much. So we talked about how it feels hot, bitter, red, paralyzing. And it comes in so many flavors. Unrequited attempts at connection, unwanted exposure, disappointed expectations, being excluded or left out. One of the very first ones that I remember was being, in very early recollection, shamed for my sensitivity. Oh, you're too sensitive. You're just too sensitive. I felt that for a long time. It's basically like, your heart's too open is basically what that meant. And then there are all the varieties of shame. Body shame, gender shame, sexuality shame, kink shame, race shame, financial shame, achievement shame, shame around chronic illness and disability, shame around neurodivergence, queer shame, shame around aging, shame about what we feel, shame about how we express ourselves, what interests us. That sort of diffuse, you're just not quite right shame, the subtle forms of shame, even shame about how we communicate, shame, oh, I talk too much, or I don't talk enough, or I talk too fast, or I talk too slow. Our very human needs and means of expression can be shamed. And I'm sure that you can add to this list. We all can. When you get down to it, it feels to me like it's that shame of being human. What a crazy thing that we buy into, the shame of being human. all the ways that we are othered, diminished, dismissed, literally colonized by the energies that seek to control us and divide us. And shame is a tremendously effective means of doing this. And I say colonized because we internalize the voices of shame and effectively continue their work of isolating, dividing, and undermining our confidence and our sense of self. It's like a virus. And there's nothing true in this kind of shaming, nothing that benefits, nothing that comes from that intuitive and aware mind that we seek to develop on the spiritual path. So this is the suffering that arises from aversion, the pain of feeling that internal disapproval, that internal abandonment, the complete opposite of unconditional love and acceptance, the inner voice of our Buddha nature, of what it is that connects us to other people. And that couldn't be further from that painful, hot sense of shame. And that has a direct bearing on how I respond when I cause harm, or when I can tell harm has been caused, because someone says, ouch. And if I'm caught in shame, this incredibly uncomfortable feeling, I am concerned with my pain and wanting to get rid of it as soon as possible. So if we're in an argument or you've told me I've hurt you in some way and that shame energy becomes triggered and I don't see it happening, then not only am I believing that I am wrong or defective in some way, but that you are wrong for making me feel this way. And there's a big difference between shame and guilt. Guilt, even though it has a bad rap, is really more about, oh, I'm sorry I did that. I can see that that caused harm. I'd rather not do that in the future. What can I do now? How can I make amends? That's healthy. That's connecting. That's repairing. That's healing. And that's only possible in a field of truth, not in a field of the lies of shaming. Okay, so how do we hold shame, toxic shame, in the context of a spiritual practice? How do we do that? So you can work with a therapist or talk to friends, and that is a really good thing to do. It can be incredibly healing. Having a caring witness to the shame that you're feeling, bringing it out of the shadows, is incredibly freeing. So how do I work with my shame as an expression of my practice? First step, don't shame the shame or yourself for feeling it. It's okay that it's happening. Remembering that this sense of shame is hardwired and we've evolved to feel it. It's normal. It's in place as a defense against acting in ways that might result in disconnection from the group. It's a bit of pain to remind us of the life-threatening pain of being exiled. So let's do the next slide, please. So that first mindful step, can I be aware of shame when I feel it and not run from it? That's a huge step, simply the naming of it. And the ability to be with what's uncomfortable is the key to our spiritual practice, growth in wisdom, and freedom. We can't only stay with joy and stillness and peace as much as we love those feelings, because that just isn't the way that life consistently unfolds. That isn't how it is to have a human mind and body and heart. For some of us, any attention feels shaming because we doubt our worth. A number of years ago, I was asked to serve as guiding teacher for my Dharma community in Palm Springs, and I agreed, even though it was way beyond my comfort zone. At the time, I'd been barely teaching for a year. And then my dear friend, who was the outgoing guiding teacher, marked the occasion at a Sunday meeting. There were a lot of people that day. And there was music and dancing and silly hats and ceremony. And I cannot tell you the shame that I felt in that moment from the attention. As lovely as the gesture was, and as much as I loved that dear friend, and as supportive of the community as the event was intended to be, all I could focus on was me And that internalized voice of shame that said, you are an imposter, you are unworthy, and if they don't know now, they will know soon enough. So I still struggle with it, but it's through recognizing that presence of shame that I can begin that healing process, that I can even take a step in that direction. Otherwise, it's just something I want to run from. So can I not shame the shame or myself for having it? And I recognize that this is part of being human. And having made some room, simply by naming it and not running away, and I hold it and the experience of it in a new way. Because this is what the Buddha Dharma is about. Recognizing, seeing clearly as we possibly can, and then changing our relationship based on that seeing. Okay, final slide, I think. Oh, no, okay. Thanks, Ingrid. So, just briefly, if a friend came to you and told you their deepest places of shame and regret, what would be your response? I think that we know what we hope our response would be. I hope my response would be welcoming, appreciative of their courage, and also not rushing past what was uncomfortable to try to get somewhere else. I'd want to listen fully without judgment, without adding any further shame by dismissing the feeling or minimizing the experience. A question that I don't know where it came from, but it's a beautiful contemplation, is do we believe that not paying attention to suffering will diminish pain? Do we believe that not paying attention to suffering will diminish pain? It's interesting to reflect. Many times I've acted as though I believed that. And appreciating the strength of vulnerability. To show another our places of shame is incredibly brave and incredibly vulnerable. And to show those places to ourselves may be even braver. So Dr. Brene Brown, who Bob introduced a moment ago, who's done so much groundbreaking research into connection, shame, and vulnerability, amazing books and TED Talks, points out the strength in vulnerability. How we fear expressing it is weakness. Yet when we see someone express vulnerability, we see the strength in it. I wonder, when I admit my shame, my difficult places, the places where I've really struggled, does it make me seem weaker? I don't feel weaker having done it. What happens when I share my vulnerable places with someone I trust? So recognizing, not chasing it away, keeping space around it, allowing it to open, noticing how it feels, the body responds to it, the mind responds to it, the heart responds to it. And that really important question, is it true? The feeling is true, the experience is true, but is the story true? And if it's not true, then how does my relationship to that story change? Or how might it change? Okay, I think I'm going to stop here. Could go on a little bit longer, but yeah, just noticing, not shaming the shame, nurturing ourselves. It's a lot easier for those shaming messages to get to us than sometimes it is for us to hear the nurturing messages that we can develop and offer to ourselves. We can reclaim our innocence. We can reteach ourselves our own loveliness, as the poet Galway Kinnell writes. May I accept myself as I am in this moment. May I accompany this experience with kindness. May I feel my own care. May I be able to receive it. So thanks for your attention. And Reverend Ian, you're going to lead us out.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you. I would like to invite you to rise in body or in spirit as we sing together our closing song. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be whole. May you be filled. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be whole. May we be filled. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be whole.
I think it's the chalice now.
Thank you, Ian. Let's extinguish the chalice. Please join together. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of commitment, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Okay, so I alluded to it a second ago. I wanted to offer as our closing words the poem St. Francis and the Sow by Galway Kinnell. The bud stands for all things, even for those things that don't flower. For everything flowers from within of self-blessing. Though sometimes it is necessary to reteach a thing its loveliness, to put a hand on its brow of the flower and retell it in words and in touch, it is lovely, until it flowers again from within of self-blessing. As St. Francis put his hand on the creased forehead of the sow and told her in words and in touch, blessings of earth on the sow, and the sow began remembering all down her thick length from the earthen snout all the way through the fodder and slops to the spiritual curl of the tail, from the hard spininess spiked out from the spine down through the great broken heart to the sheer blue milken dreaminess spurting and shuddering from the 14 teats into the 14 mouths, sucking and blowing beneath them the long, perfect loveliness of sow.